Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuesday Night Legacy. Here's what we got for you this time. Well, this time we've got round 2 from our Modern 1K that we held on June 1st. On the left we have Muxus playing a Goblins combo deck. And on the right we have an opponent that I never caught the name of, playing a blue-white Hammertime deck. So Muxus is over here trying to combo off with his Goblins. The main win condition is a conspicuous Snoop, copying the top of the deck using its ability to copy a Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker, which will allow for infinite Snoops in play. And the very last card, you can either win with attacking with all of those Snoops if you do this in an end phase, on your opponent's end phase, and then untap with a ton of 2/2 Snoops, or you can finish him off right then and there by copying a Bogart Harbinger and putting a Sling Gang Lieutenant onto the top of the deck, being able to sacrifice all the goblins, everybody loses life, you win the game, it's great. Otherwise, this deck is a grind fest and a half. So it uses all sorts of different goblins, Mog War Marshal to create a bunch of extra goblins, Munitions Expert to deal with things on the board, Pashalik Mons can actually create a quicker win condition with the Sling Gang Lieutenant naturally with just a bunch of goblins in play, and you're just kind of tapping these guys sideways. You get to play Goblin Ringleader to reload your hand. This is a mid-range dream of a deck that just happens to have a combo finish in it. So I'd say this is a combo versus combo matchup. Both of these decks can operate at the mid-range speed, but we're going to see who gets to combo first. So we have Hammertime going and getting, I think that's a Plains. We had some terrible glare on the day of this tournament, so I'll be doing my best to call out these cards. We're seeing a Memnite come down and a Giver of Runes. Giver of Runes, of course, giving protection. It's the Modern's version of Mother of Runes, but arguably could be slightly better because it can give protection from colorless, it just can't protect itself. And we see Muxus starting with that Ignoble Hierarch, the replacement for Noble Hierarch on the other side, being able to play right into the colors that Muxus wants to be playing. And given that Exalted trigger too, you don't see goblins attacking by themselves a lot, but in situations that it matters, it really matters. A Stoneforge Mystic coming down on Hammertime's side, getting that Colossus Hammer into hand. Got to make sure that you have it before you can play the Sigarda's Aid and combo off. So it can be deployed quite easily, but that Equip 8 is pretty intense. Want to make sure that you have that Sigarda's Aid before you play this thing, because that is an Enter the Battlefield effect. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach it to target creature you control. We see Muxus playing his Conspicuous Snoop, revealing the top card of the library. Just an Auntie's Hovel on top there. We do see the Sigarda's Aid come down. Looks like Muxus may be in a little trouble here. Now that is interesting because, yes, the Memnite can attack here, and then Hammertime can activate the Stoneforge Mystic at instant speed, being able to put in the Colossus Hammer and getting that Enter the Battlefield effect. So it's almost like a combat trick, giving your creature +10/+10 if unblocked. So Muxus has got to think about this one. I think he's decided... Yes, he's decided not to block. And so we see a reality chip being deployed here. And when it comes in, it's going to attach to the Stoneforge Mystic. So now Hammertime can look at the top card of their library, play off the top lands and cast spells, only while it's equipped. We're seeing a Goblin Ringleader come in on Muxus' side, getting to reveal top 4 cards of his library, showing a Pashalik Mons and a Kiki Jiki. Jiki definitely don't want him in hand. There's only 2 in the deck. I'm not sure. Yeah, Muxus is running 2 in his deck, so you definitely need them in the deck in order to perform the combo, because Snoop wants to see it on the top of the deck, not actually in hand. Seeing a couple cards being cast off the top here, an Esper Sentinel, another Ornithopter. That Urza Saga up to 2 triggers now. Casting a Giver of Runes off the top. Guess he couldn't cast the top card of his library. Decided to sack the Windswept Heath. See if he can get more value. No value there. So by doing this, unless he has a land drop, he has given up the Construct here, but maybe that doesn't really matter with the Hammertime token, or the Hammertime creature. Wants to be able to do that combat trick, especially on an Ornithopter. You can attack with flying. When it's marked unblocked, then you bring in that Colossus Hammer. It's almost like ninjutsu, a little bit. We're seeing an Auntie's Hovel, a Skirk Prospector revealed, so it can come in untapped. And this is an interesting situation. So Muxus has quite a bit of stuff he can do here. So he can cast that Sling Gang Lieutenant off the top. So he puts a Pashalik Mons into play. I think Muxus has to win here if he can. 3 mana. Skirk Prospector allows him to sacrifice Goblins for 1 red mana. So I think he's doing the math here. I think he wants to sacrifice one of these nobles to play. Yeah, there we go. And then he can actually shoot his opponent for 1. When that goblin died, because of Pashalik Mons, whenever a goblin dies, get to shoot something for 1. So now Muxus is in an extremely good scenario here. He has several goblins to sack. So if he sacks everything except the Mons and the Lieutenant, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 damage that he can drain for. I'm not sure what Hammertime's at. It's actually 16, because you sack the Mons as well, and then 17 for the Lieutenant. So let's see if that's what's going to happen here. Definitely going for it. And I guess that's it. So Muxus takes that first round with the sacrifice outlet of Sling Gang Lieutenant paired with Pashalik Mons. We're on to game 2. Seeing a Sigarda's Aid right out of the gate from Hammertime. And an Aether Vial from Muxus. Aether Vial being a very useful card in the Goblins deck, being able to generate that extra advantage when you're tapped out. Playing your Goblins at instant speed. A couple of fetch lands. We're seeing a Hushbringer out of the sideboard for Hammertime. This is actually going to hurt quite a bit here. This turns off the Munitions Expert, which is one of the main ways of dealing with problematic permanents in the deck. You can actually see Muxus has it in his hand right now. This turns off the Enter the Battlefield. You don't get the Goblins with the Sling Gang Lieutenant. Oh, wow! Okay, well, instant speed, flash, cast equipments as though they had flash. So attacks with the Hushbringer and plays 2 Colossus Hammer, and that's 21 damage on turn 3. So, the end. Let's go to game 3. And we're seeing the same start here. A Sigarda's Aid on turn 1. Passing it back. Conspicuous Snoop showing a Goblin Matron on top of the deck. A good card to see. Looks like Hammertime's got an Ornithopter, Urza Saga, Hallowed Fountain, a couple other things. We're seeing the Urza Saga come down. 2 mana for a Stoneforge, getting the hammer? Probably the hammer. Yep. This is already representing, what, 11 damage? 10 damage with this Ornithopter next turn? How is... I don't know why I forgot about the first line of text on the Sigarda's Aid. So all that stuff I was saying game 1 is still technically true, but kind of unnecessarily convoluted. I guess you could do it in order to not have to deal with counter spells. That would be the only advantage. We're seeing a Munitions Expert come in. So this is going to count the number of Goblins in play and then deal damage to a single creature or Planeswalker. Or X's those Goblins. Getting rid of that Ornithopter. I think that's a Paradise Mantle and a Pure Steel Paladin. Pure Steel Paladin also making it so that equip is 0. And then that Paradise Mantle is allowing that creature to tap for any color. We're seeing the Colossus Hammer come down. It doesn't have trample though. So loading up on the only creature that didn't have Summoning Sickness, and just binned that Munitions Expert. Mux is in a pretty tough spot here. Really the only way he was going to blow out Hammertime was by having a Harbinger on top of the deck right this second. That is not the case. Looks like he has a Matron. Don't know if he can survive to next turn though. If he plays the Matron, he could get a Harbinger to his hand, and then next turn win, as long as Hammertime doesn't have any removal for him. So let's see if he has the same thought that I do. It's a very risky play. It's more of a play to win than play to survive kind of strategy. Yep, there's the Harbinger. Harbinger, of course, putting the Goblin on top of the deck, which is exactly what you want to do in this situation. There was always the chance that that was going to be a Kiki-Jiki on top. Not so lucky. So Mux is just kind of praying that he's going to survive this round of combat. Decides to float one colorless mana. If he goes and gets another hammer, spread around the damage. Looks like by equipping that hammer early, well, it's an awkward situation because if he didn't equip the hammer early and was able to attack with the flying creature, it wasn't going to be enough. So, yep, there's a Shadow Spear, which is going to give that 11-12 haste. Well, that's interesting. A Hushbringer. Oh no, Hushbringer's going to stop the Harbinger's ability. So attacking, decides to block the Ornithopter, taking the trample damage anyways. Oh yeah, that's smart, giving trample to the Ornithopter with the Shadow Spear. A second Hushbringer, so even if he could have dealt with it, there's just, it's not going to happen now. That was a very well-timed double piece of hate there. So, Ringleader, it doesn't even look like he's got a fourth mana. See the Ignoble come into play. I think Muxus is at like 9 at this point. See a second Conspicuous Snoop, just kind of playing some creatures to get him down, hoping that maybe he could draw something next turn. And Hammertime kind of deciding how they want to play this out. Another hammer. That's a lot of damage. I think that's a 23-23 with trample and lifelink. Yeah, that's going to be game. Just a little bit too much for Muxus to deal with. Those Hushbringers coming in right at the time that they needed to come down, preventing Muxus from using his combo to win the game on the spot there. And good showing from Hammertime. Thanks for joining us for that round. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please take a look at some of our other videos if that's the kind of thing you're into, and consider subscribing to the channel. And why not throw a like our way? It's very helpful. Thanks again to Spellhold Games for allowing us to record in the space. And please join us for our next round. It's going to be a Pauper video, Mono White Heroic versus Sultai Monarch. We'll see you then.